Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. And I'm super excited to be here as we unveil some of the brand new enhancements that are coming to your CRM from LedU Partners this month. Now, for those that don't know me, I'm Chad Collette, the Director of Marketing here at LedU Partners and one that loves to email everybody. Now, you may also know me from previous webinars and hopefully with those emails, you're not only receiving them, but you find them valuable. Now, before we get into kind of the core of today's webinar, I want to just hit on a couple of standard housekeeping items that we like to cover each time. Now, first of all, today's webinar is being recorded and it's going to be available on demand after the live session. Everybody's going to receive a follow-up email after the webinar is complete with a link to access the video and kind of the release details. Now, if you haven't already, please add @ledupartners.com to your safe senders list to ensure you get these emails. And if you can reach out to all the other users and just making sure that they are getting our emails, our communications, and these details, it's very important for all that. Now, our goal is really to grow user adoption within the CRM for oil and gas solution and really help you marketers achieve the greatest return on investment possible. Now, the second thing is to ensure the best audio quality. We have everybody on listen only mode. But if you happen to have a question or a comment, please submit those in the question pane in your GoToWebinar control panel. And after this webinar is done, we're also going to have a survey that you can complete with any other questions or follow-up that you may want to do. So now that we got that out of the way, I want to welcome today's presenter, Steve Raybrock from LedU Partners. Now, I think a large portion of our audience already knows Steve from being on site with you as you came on board with your CRM, or hopefully attending previous user group webinars and watching Steve on the training videos that are right within your CRM. Now, I know Steve's really excited to share with you all the details of this latest enhancement that himself and the product team have put together. So, Steve, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Chad, for that great introduction. We have lots of stuff to cover today, but Chad said he was excited to introduce me and get this thing kicked off. I tell you what, once a year, my family gets together and we make over 100 apple pies. And that process has already started. I'm working from home and down below me, everybody's at her wondering why I'm not helping. So when I'm done with this webinar, I'm going to join the crew and start making apple pies. So excited for that this afternoon yet. All right, so what is on our agenda for today? The main topic is to talk about the new enhancements and then some of our other items that we always cover in these user group webinars is a quick update on our roadmap. I'll answer any submitted questions, which, oh, by the way, there weren't any. I'll give you some feedback on what everybody mentioned was their favorite CRM feature. And I think that's good information to share because there might be a feature that someone has as their favorite that you didn't even know was there. So knowing what your fellow users think is like a great feature might cause you to research it a little bit and maybe start using it as well. I'll remind you of some training process that we have in place for your new users, talk about resources that are available, talk about the referral program, and then we'll wind down. So let's rock and roll. I think what I'm going to do today is there's 4 slides specific to the new enhancements. Rather than go through all 4 slides and then jump into CRM, I think I'm going to discuss an enhancement. So basically discuss a slide, flip over to CRM and show you, and then come back to the PowerPoint. So it's a little bit more bouncing around, but I don't want to just go through and explain everything and then have to show you, and then you have to try to remember it all. So here we go with our first enhancement that most of you will see on October 27th. So that's coming up next week already. Is a new report that you can run on Dashboard 97. So as most of you know, on Dashboard 97 is a way to request a report and it gets emailed to you. So there's this new report that's a sales team progress report. So it's just a great way to kind of see how you're doing or how your sales team is doing. And it does things like shows 1 line per user, and it shows all the different activities they've completed, how many leads they've opened, qualified and disqualified, opportunities won, lost, ratios, and how many opportunities have moved into stage 3, 4, 5. And for all of these, you have to enter a range of dates. So there's something kind of important about this report. This is a little bit different than a lot of our reports, and it comes back to this requirement listed up here. The report uses the user record in CRM. So most of you might not even know what that is, but every one of you has a user record, and it has your name in it and your email address, amongst other things. And a couple of the fields that are on the user record is what's called the default department and your sales area. So your default department, depending on what your departments are, right, could be lubricants, fuel, equipment, whatever. And your sales area can either be blank, it can be inside sales or outside sales. So the only users that are going to show up on this report are those that have a default department and they have a sales area defined. So that's real important. If you're not sure or the report comes up blank, you'll have to work with the person on your team who works with us to add and make modifications to your users. We just want to make sure that you set up all the users with a default department, and if they are in inside sales or outside sales, to just configure it as such. And we can make those changes. We just need to know what they are. If you want any more information about this report, I've documented it all in document 97, which is in the document area of CRM. So with that in mind, I'm going to flip over to CRM, and looks like I'm in dashboards already. So I got lucky. I just started this when we were firing up the webinar, and I'm going to go into dashboard 97. And again, as you know, you get a list of reports, and you don't actually see the report in front of you. You request it, and then it gets emailed to you. So I actually have one in my inbox already, but I wanted to show you what it looks like on the screen here, just how you run it. So here's the sales team progress report 310, and it only asks you a couple questions here, a start date and an end date. So I could put in, maybe I want to do all of this year. So I'll go through today. Was it the 19th today? And here's that big reminder note. This only works if your company is utilizing the default department and the sales area. So you've got to make sure you've got that working. And then you can just go to run the report, or you can narrow it down to certain departments or certain sales areas. If you leave all of these blank, it assumes you want all. But as soon as you check one, like if I checked fuel and lubes, that's all I care about is fuel and lubes. If I say I only care about my outside sales team, or I only care about my inside sales team, you could check one of those. I'll just leave it blank. The other thing that's interesting, the way this was designed, we worked with a client on this one, and they only wanted the report to show the opportunities that match the user's default department. So if my default department was lubricants, I might have a couple of other department opportunities, but basically I don't want to see them on the report. Well, we're going to give you the choice. So this is an important question here. Opportunities to include only those for the user default department, or you can change it to, hey, show me all of the opportunities for the user. So you're just going to have to remember to change that if you want all of them. For those of you who only have one department, no big deal. Doesn't matter how you answer it. Or if most of your users use the same department anyway, then it probably doesn't matter either. So basically, you know how this works. If you're used to running reports in dashboard 97, you get it all filled in, you hit request report, gives you a little green circle here for about 2 or 3 seconds. And then I can go back to working in CRM. And in the meantime, an email is going to come to me. And I think I have one right here. So this came a little while ago. So this is how the email looks, and you just open it up. And I think I only have one user set up in here for my little training world. So let's not get carried away with the data so much as the columns. So just imagine you put in a range of dates, you pick departments, you pick what opportunities you want to include. Here's that little reminder. If the thing doesn't work, it's because you don't have your user set up properly. But just think, for each user, all the different things that they've completed in the time period I entered with a nice total. How many open leads did each person have as of the end date? So as of October, in this case, October 18th, how many leads did each person have open? And then during this time period, how many did I disqualify, qualify, and then what's the conversion rate? And then kind of scrolling across, see things like how many opportunities did I win, lose, and then what were the ratios associated with each of those. And then this is kind of probably the hardest part for us is during that time period, how many opportunities, and I think in this case it's me, right? Yeah, Steve. In this time period, how many opportunities did Steve finally get to stage 3 or stage 4 or stage 5 as a win? And then, oh, by the way, how many opportunities existed that were available and open during that time period that was selected? So if we know the total, basically, then we can do some percentages. These are all the opportunities that Steve was working. 3 of them he won, and 5 of them he got to sales stage 4, and none of them, actually got moved to sales stage 3. So this is movement now. I might have a ton of opportunities that are already in stage 4, but if they didn't move there during this period, the time period I picked, it's not going to show up. So it's really showing like what did someone do during a certain time period, not like exactly how things look today, right? It's easy to kind of go look at that. So again, this was kind of tricky to figure all that out, but there it is. So if you're looking for a very concise report about yourself or a team, very nice report 310 on dashboard 97. All right, so let's flip back to the PowerPoint if I can find that. All right, so that's slide number 1. Slide number 2, another report. This is an account profitability analysis report, and this is on the reports menu. So this is not on dashboard 97. It doesn't take a very long time to run, so it's easy to just fill in the blanks in the reports menu. It just pops up right on your screen. So the way this works is you have to create estimates. So you build, throughout the day, the week, the month, the year, right? You can add records to this estimate file. And let's say you want to do some analysis on 10 accounts. So you set up 10 estimates. And then when you run this report, it's going to give you 10 lines. So basically you control, exactly what's on this report. So why would you want to use a report like this? A couple of reasons I can think of, and you might have your own, is maybe you're just curious about a particular account. Maybe when you just landed the account, they promised to buy, 100,000 gallons of stuff from you every year. Well, you might want to put that in this estimate file, and then anytime you run this report, you're going to be able to tell, how close were they. Maybe somebody just won an opportunity and they kind of guessed at what they thought that opportunity was going to be worth. You could put those estimates in this account profitability estimate file. So the tricky part of this report, again, it's different than a lot of other reports. If you just run it, you're not going to get anything, right? You need to maintain this account profitability estimate file. But this can save you a lot of time and help you do a lot of analysis. The other thing that's a little bit tricky about this is that it does the analysis at the account department level. So we didn't break it down all the way to the product level. It's basically for this account, let's say lubricants, here's what I think this customer, should do. Here's the estimate, and then you run a report and we can tell you what the actuals were. So let's flip over and take a look at this real quick. All right, let's find ourselves into CRM. Where are we? Right here. All right, so now I'm going to go over to reports, which was in the workplace area. And you know what? Before I even do that, I think I'm going to cheat it. I'm going to start in the beginning. Usually I show you the report first and then back into it, but I'm just going to show you what I set up here. So I'm going to go into the sales area, and that's where I would maintain these estimates. And I know, maybe a ton of you aren't going to use this feature, or if you are, you're not going to have to do this very often. So we stuck this pretty much down on the bottom. So here's account profitability estimates, and I think I have a couple in there. So it's just another, set of records. So I'll just open up this one right here. So I've got 2 in here. So when I run the report, I'm going to see 2 of them. So what does it look like? So for Fairview Manufacturing, for the lubricants department, they promised, these are just my estimates, 1,000 gallons a year, or 10,000 gallons a year, $5,000 in gross profit, and we're kind of hoping about 500 gallons per delivery. Now, you don't have to fill all of these in. If you only care about, actual versus estimate for volume, just leave these other two blank. When you run the report, we are still going to show you the actual, so it's going to look like you're doing really good on gross profit and gallons per delivery if you don't put in an estimate, but you just won't use that part of the report, right? That's fine. Some of you, when we integrate with your accounting system, you decided not to bring over gross profit. Well, then, the only reason you'd put in an estimate here is just so you have that, in front of you, but I'm not going to be able to compare to actuals because I don't have actuals. So basically, that's all you do is go in here when you want to do a measurement or do some analysis on a particular customer department. You just go up into this file and hit the new button and fill in the blanks, and then save the record. And then you'll end up kind of like I did with two of them in here. And you might have 4, you might have 50, you might have 500. It doesn't matter. So the key is then when you go to run the report, because your estimates should be annual estimates, when I go to run the report, I should pick a 12-month time period. Now, you can put in your estimates any way you want, right? If you want to do 6 months estimates, you just have to know when you run this report, you're going to want to pick a 6-month time period, right? Actual should represent the same time period as your estimates. So when I go to run the report, I just get 2 dates here. So I'll just make it easy. I'll just say 10/1/20 through 9/30/21. And then I just go over here and hit view report. And if all is working, I should just have a report with 2 lines on it. And sure enough, here are those 2 accounts. And it has the department. I'll just use this Fairview one down here. So for lubricants, this is my estimated volume, estimated gross profit. I can calculate the estimated margin per gallon. And then here's actual volume, actual gross profit, and actual margin per gallon. And then I can show the variances. So if these variances are all positive, that's great, right? If you see some negatives, right, you know that they're a little bit behind. And then here was that estimated number of, well, we calculate how many delivers they had in that 12-month time period. Here's your estimate gallon per delivery, and here's the actual. So they're a little bit behind on their delivery size. And then way over on the right, we just threw some columns on here that if you export this, you might want to do some analysis by owner, by industry. We just put phone numbers, address information on here. If you don't need that stuff, don't worry about it. It's way over on the end. The guts of it are right here. So pretty cool report. One other note besides this whole concept of department and account, some of you, actually many of you, have your CRM set up where your ship tos are separate accounts in CRM. So it's real important to know when you set up that estimate, if you pick a parent account, so if this Fairview Manufacturing was a parent account and it had like 20 ship tos, if the estimate is for the parent, these actuals are going to represent the actuals for the whole customer, the parent and all the ship tos. If you picked a ship to account, these actuals are only going to be for that one location, that one ship to account. So again, make sure you know what you're putting your estimates for, what department, what account. And then are you doing annual estimate? So when you run the report, you're going to get what you want. I mean, I'd hate for you to be making some poor decisions because you just misunderstood how the report worked. And I kind of explain that here a little bit about the actuals. If you do put in a parent account, the actuals are going to be for the child account, and the parent account. All right, cruising right along. Hopefully this is good stuff, everybody. These are 2 pretty cool reports. Let's flip back over to the PowerPoint and we'll move on to some even more cool stuff. We did a lot of changes to the account screen. A lot of folks live on the account screen, right? They're about to visit a customer or they're doing some analysis. So we added a 4-year summary grid that breaks down 4 years of order history by, it shows volume and gross profit. Again, if you send gross profit to us, but it sorts it by department and month. showing 4 years kind of across. So I'll show you that in a minute. This next item is going to kind of cause you to be a little bit creative. So if you don't use these, that's great. But in the next year, 2 years, 5 years, something might come up and you wish that these were there, and they'll be there. So we created 3 user-defined date fields, 3 user-defined amount fields, and 3 user-defined text fields for you to do with whatever you want or do nothing. So as an example, you might call me up and say, Steve, I'm trying to find a way to capture contract expiration date on our accounts. And in the past, I probably would have said, well, why don't you create an activity with a due date and some information about when the contract expires for that account. And then when that activity comes due, you're gonna see it. It's like, no, that's a cool idea, Steve, but I just want a list of accounts and their contract expiration date. Well, guess what? Now I can say, well, hey, there's 3 user-defined date fields. You're not using any of them. Why don't you use one of them for the contract expiration date? And now you can maintain it. You can make a view of those. You can really do whatever you want with them. So anyway, you can be creative with dates, with amounts, with text fields, whatever you want. Now you have options. We also added a credit tab. If your credit department is getting more involved with CRM, there's another tab called credit. Gives you all kinds of different fields that you can enter as it relates to credit. Some of you may never use that tab. One of the things that it has is next credit review date. So if your company is into that, right, you set up somebody's credit, but maybe 2 years I should review that again, you can enter that date. And then there's a view that shows you all of those that are either past due or coming due in the next 30 days. There's also a field for credit insurance. That's an option set. I'm not too familiar with credit. I don't spend my time on credit, so I don't even know what this exactly is. Just fessing up there. But if you want values in that option set, just let us know. And it's like a drop-down list. So we just need to fill it in with whatever you want. We also added some columns to a couple of the more popular views, active accounts and my active accounts. So I'll show you that, just to give you more flexibility when you're analyzing stuff. And then on the 360 main form, we adjusted the activity grids just a bit. We basically we added a few columns, and then the closed activities only used to show 30 days. Now it shows all of them. So I'm going to come up for air here and flip over to CRM and see if I can show you all that without taking forever. So I'm just going to do a quick global search and find that famous Fairview Manufacturing. So these should be pretty easy to show you. So we start out with that 4-year summary grid. Again, I apologize for not having like super duper data, but I'm excited to see how this looks in some of your orgs with real data. But if you go to this contacts and product summary screen, you're used to seeing your contacts over here and the most 12-month summary here. This is the most recent 12 months broken down by product, right? We're all familiar with that. Well, now you've got another little grid down here. It shows by department, so in this case, fuel, and then by month, how many gallons and how much gross profit in January of 2018 did this particular customer do for fuel. And then you can kind of see trending, right? 2018, 2019, 2020, and then so far 2021. I'll let you know that this is based on calendar year. It has nothing to do with your fiscal year, so just be thinking calendar years. Most of your fiscal years are calendar year anyway. So then it cruises along, and that's all the fuel department, and then a nice total. And then this particular customer also did some lubricant business with us. So then it shows lubricant numbers by month, and then again for the 4 years with some nice totals. So there's that. And also you can export this to Excel if you wanted to. So that's kind of a common feature. If I go over to the classification and categorization tab, this is where we used to have just 6 user-defined option sets. So it's like basically a drop-down list, right? A very finite list of values. So there's limits there, right? You can't have dates, you can't have dollar amounts, right? I mean, it's just a static list. So we've added 3 amount fields for you to do whatever you want to, 3 text fields, 3 date fields. And if you want, if you start using these, you can just email or call our support desk and say, hey, we started using user date 1. It's contract expiration date. Can you have this say contract expiration date on the screen? We can do that. just for those of you who are kind of probing into the data and making your own views, in the database, it's still called user date 1, but you'll see it on this screen as contract expiration date or whatever you want it to say. So pretty cool there. I mentioned a new tab for credit. A couple of the fields we already had, things like credit limit, credit rating, if you're using that, in payment terms. So if this was an actual customer, those would be locked. They would be coming from your accounting system. But everything else on here is new. Use what you want. Don't use any of it. So things like, when did we receive the application? Did it get approved? When did it get denied? If it got denied, what credit limit did they request? Here's that. When was the last time we reviewed the credit, and when's the next time we want to review their credit, right? And so there's other questions on here. It's really whatever your credit department wants to use, or again, don't use it at all. And then I mentioned that there's a view, so I'm going to go over to accounts. There should be a view in here that says something like, see if I can find it. Active accounts needing a credit review. So the only rules here is it's an active account, and that credit review date is within 60 days of 30 days into the future, or it's past due. So it's just kind of reminding you of those that are going to be needing a credit review. So again, your credit department could use this list. It'd be perfect. Oh, and I mentioned that we added a few columns to some of the views. So if I went to like my active accounts, a lot of you use this view quite a bit, and I think it ended right about here before. So it had name, account number, address information, last completed activity date. Well, now we have things like industry, relationship type, start date, last order date. If they're a child account, who's the parent? When was this account created? When was it modified, right? Who modified it? So all kinds of good stuff right here. And the power of these views, right? You can do filtering and massage this list any way you want. So like this last order date, right? I could sort this by last order date. I could say, show me all those that are, before this date. And I could narrow down the list just by clicking here, and I could make a filter. I could sort it, right? So there's all kinds of power. Now you've got this data right here in front of you. And we did the same thing to the view called active accounts. So active accounts are all those accounts that you have access to, not just yours. And we added all those columns to the end of this one as well. All right, and then let's quick get back to Fairview for a minute. So the last thing, I'm probably doing this in a bad order, is that 360 main form. For those of you who are familiar with this takes the parent account, and if it has any child accounts, and combines it all on one screen. And you can hit this button even if there's only a parent account, if there's no sub accounts, no ship to accounts, because it gives you this nice, chart of trending by month for volume. This would be for the parent and all the ship tos if there are any. And then this 360-degree view is kind of cool because it has all the different things related to the parent and all the ship tos. And then the part we added or we changed is this open activities. We added a couple columns here. We sorted it by due date. There probably shouldn't be very many open activities on this screen. I just have a lot of kind of test data out here. So this one probably isn't as important as this one. The closed activity date is sorted now descending by closed activity date, and it doesn't just go back 30 days. We're just going to list them all. So this does get a little tricky when you try to put an email like on a list like this, because who knows what you should put in the description. So we go out and grab like the body of the email as much as we can here. And if there's some formatting in there, I mean, this is how it looks, right? So we can't really control that. That's just data. But hopefully you kind of get a gist. And you can click on any of these underlines and just go right to that activity. So I could open up any of these open opportunities, or I could see what in the world this phone call was all about by just clicking right here, and it'll take me right to that phone call. It actually opens up another window. So when I'm all done looking at this phone call and it looks like I just typed in a bunch of gibberish, I can just review this. And then when I close it out, I'm right back where I was. So kind of cool there. Whew. How am I doing for time? I think I'm doing pretty good. All right. One last thing, not too much to show you. I might not even flip over, but flip over to CRM. We might just talk about this. So this one I highlighted in red because this one's important. Of everything I showed you, no one's really affected, right? You have to proactively go do something. Well, this first one, you and your team are going to know this, and you're going to wonder what in the world is going on. Something's wrong. Well, it's not wrong. So what we've determined, some of you have called me in the past and you've said, we have this opportunity in CRM that just, it doesn't make sense to me. It's like, it's closed as 1, but it says it's in sales stage 3. Like, how can that be? Or it's closed as lost, but it's in stage 5. Like, how could that be? How could I lose it when, so what we've determined is, especially for those of you who maybe are working on the road or working at home, maybe you've got a little bit slower connection. When you go to close an opportunity as won or as lost, there could be like a 1 or 2 second delay while it's doing that. And while the system is doing its thing, you can actually go and be making changes to that opportunity. And I'm fairly certain some of you have done that. And that causes that kind of that conflict in the data where, like, how could the system let this even happen? It makes no sense. So we have been doing everything in our power to button that up. So the system shouldn't let you do that. I mean, we've done things with like the next stage button and the last stage button. And I mean, we've done all kinds of controls on that. And this is like the last thing we're putting in there. And I think we're going to have this thing figured out now. But when you close an opportunity as won or lost, as soon as you hit like the OK button, you're going to get one more message now that says, your opportunity is being closed. Wait like a second or two, hit OK, and then continue to use CRM, but you're not allowed to change an opportunity while it's being closed. So you might want to get word out to all your users that, hey, when you, starting on the 27th, when you go to close an opportunity, don't be shocked if you get, one more question you've got to click OK on. All right. While we were in there, we also added some columns because we were kind of reviewing all the views. So not too many people use these views, but if I'm looking at active contacts or my active contacts, we added some columns to the end of that. For those of you who use the order history, view, so you can get a list of, let's say, all the order history in the system, right? Hundreds of thousands of records. We've added a few columns to that view. And then if you ever go to look at products, right? You go to sales, you go to products, there's a view there. The active product view, we added some columns there as well. All right. Finally, some of you may know this, some of you may not, but up until October 27th, if you didn't know this, we are able to, or we were able to, we still are able to configure your opportunity and account screen to make some fields required, and that only affects your CRM, right? It doesn't affect everybody else's. So we had to make that very configurable because some of you think some things are more important than others when it comes to the opportunity screen or the account screen. Well, that's been very popular. People would call up and say, Steve, I want you to make the estimated close date required on the opportunity. And oh, by the way, on the contact screen, can you make the contact role required? Or on the task screen, can you make the description required? And for contacts, leads, tasks, phone calls, sales calls, appointments, and emails, I've always had to say, nope, we don't have that functionality. Well, starting on the 27th, if there's any fields on these screens that you want to be required, you can just email our support desk and we can do that. And it would only affect your CRM, but it does affect all your users. So it's like, it's on or it's off. So if for contacts, you wanted contact role required, it's required for everybody. If for task, you want a description required, it's required for everybody. So keep that in mind. If you find that the system just isn't being used as you'd like and you want a little bit more required fields, we can do that for you on these other popular screens. All right, I'm going to kind of pick up the pace here. What time is it? I got about 10 minutes. All right, so roadmap. anything here highlighted in red, we kind of nailed the roadmap on this release. These have been in our roadmap for quite a while. We got all of these done that are in red. There's only a few left on our roadmap, so I got to take a step back and review, hey, what do we want to do like in the future? One of the things I've heard from a few customers are that there's so many big features in the system right now that we're not even using. It's like we're not really looking for like the next big thing. Just keep these little things coming that can make our lives a little bit easier, a little bit more efficient, make the system a little bit more user friendly. So that's kind of the focus of this release, and probably going to be the next one as well. Unless we dream up like just this monster idea for a project. But so far there's just a lot in the tool already, so probably a few more little ones. All right. Good news on this. When you signed up for the webinar, we asked if you had any questions, and nobody submitted any questions. And as most of you know, this is a good thing, because if you do have questions, please don't wait for this webinar. You can always email or call our support team, or reach out to your power user. If you have one there, we want to get your questions answered, you being productive, just as soon as possible. So yeah, don't wait until you register for a user group webinar. I thought this was really interesting. Chad asked a great question when you signed up for the webinar. What's your favorite CRM feature? And I was kind of shocked that I didn't see anything in here about opportunity management, not once. So reports, wow, just blew everything out of the water here. We've done a couple webinars on reports, but seeing this, I wonder if I should do another one just on reports, and just go through, like, maybe for the next couple webinars, go through like every report if everybody's liking them. And if those of you who aren't using them, maybe you'll realize the value there. So the reason I wanted to share this is, right, if you're not using reports, well, 32% of the people who are attending said that's my favorite feature. Well, that might tell you something if you're not one of them. Activity tracking, I was really pleasantly surprised that that was high on the list. Mobile app, I was kind of expecting. Charts and dashboards, account management tools. I actually thought this one might be a little bit higher on the list, having all the data at your fingertips. It's just all right there. And then some of those that were maybe only mentioned once, maybe twice, things like lead tracking, the business card reader, global search. Somebody really loves that feature apparently. Equipment tracking, the data integration with the accounting system. That could almost fall into all data at your fingertips. So I could have maybe got rid of that and maybe bumped this up a few percentage points. And then somebody really likes the KPI feature. So good stuff. Just thought I'd share it with you so you know what others think are cool features. All right, quick review on this. I cover this every time, but if you send us that you have a new user to set up, we add them to CRM, and we also put them in this little program where it's going to kick out 6 emails to them. For 2 weeks, they get an email on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it basically just describes a little feature in CRM and points them to a video to watch. So it's just another way to kind of nudge them into CRM. It obviously does not take the place of your one-on-one training with them, or if you need us to train them. But anyway, it's just one more way to get kind of CRM, in front of your team. There's also a lot of other resources right at ledgeviewpartners.com if you're interested. And hopefully you all know that there's videos and documentation right within your CRM, right in the workplace area. And then for those of you who didn't know, we at LedgeView focus on a lot of things that revolve around CRM. And we're doing this more and more with a lot of our oil and gas customers and other customers, but we do a lot of marketing consulting to help you analyze and implement maybe a marketing automation tool, or to help you analyze if you even need one. Some folks outsource their marketing to us because they just can't get it done, and we've got expertise here, and we know the tools we want to use, and so people do that. Some folks outsource their inside sales to us. We've done some field service implementations for those folks who have a lot of folks out in the field doing work. And then we don't really focus on this, but we have done a limited number of engagements that are more technical. An example, we have a lot of customers who are moving from their old phone system or their phone system to Teams, because Teams is just That's what we do here at LedgeView. We're all switching over to use Teams to make outbound calls and receive calls, and it's just so nice. You just don't need a phone anymore. So we're actually helping some customers with that. That's not our niche, but we're here to help. And if you can't find anyone to help you, we'll at least entertain the idea, and we're doing that for a few clients already. So if you have any interest in talking about any of this stuff, just let me know. I just wanted to point it out that, we're a resource for you if you're analyzing this and you're kind of getting feedback from others. You could also get a little feedback from us to, kind of look at options. All right, we still have our referral program. So if you can introduce me to someone who you think could use our system, and they end up going with us and getting our CRM, you'll get a $25 gift card, and your company will get a nice $1,000 credit. So you'll look like a hero to the bosses. I'm pooped. I got to go make apple pies. Chad, back to you to kind of wrap this thing up.
Thanks a lot, Steve. And I think we're all super jealous that we don't get to partake in the apple pies. Pre-COVID, Steve would always bring in the next day fresh baked apple pies, and it was so amazing. So COVID strikes again with Steve working from home. But hopefully next year we can get back into some of those fresh baked pies. For everybody, thank you very much. I know this was a lot of information, and we really appreciate taking the time. Make sure you're sharing this with other people in your organization. Remind them that within that CRM video library, there is a video on this. Also, everyone yesterday should have received an email from Steve with all the details kind of lined out on the new release. So we want to make sure that everybody did in fact get that. If you're having any trouble with your not getting emails from us, please reach out to our support team, to myself, to Steve, and so we can get that corrected. And then we will obviously be sending out this user group webinar on demand as well tomorrow. So until next time, thank you very much. Steve, go make your pies, and to everybody else, have a fantastic day.
Thanks, Chad.